Trump proposes the portable mortgage. Is that going to be the solution to the current housing affordability crisis? Welcome to another episode of the Never Lose a Deal podcast. My name is Lorillia, and as always, this show is for real estate investors who desire to scale and expand their portfolio using creative financing, and that is what I talk about here on this podcast. So today I am talking about the proposed portable mortgage. Now, about 2 weeks ago, Housing Secretary Polt announced that Trump has proposed a portable mortgage. Now, I'm going to give you the short version of it. Of course, you can go out there on the internet and do it more of a deeper dive. But pretty much, the portable mortgage is going to give the ability for homeowners who currently have low interest rate mortgages to be able to transfer that mortgage to another home. And so one may say, okay, well, how does that help with housing affordability? Now, I'm going to be honest. I really don't know how it's going to work on the financing side. I'll be honest, and I'm on the financing side. Even though I'm not in the residential space, I am curious to learn how that would help professionals, because at the end of the day, everything is all about economics. And I know there are not going to be mortgage companies that are going to lose out on potential income because if a homeowner, let's just say, has a home that they've had for many years, I'll be honest with you, my primary home, the interest rate on it is like 3%. Now, of course, interest rates now are what, 6, 7. It really just depends on a lot of factors, credit, what have you. And of course, the mortgage professional you work with. So let's just say, using myself for an example, if I was to sell my current primary home and get something else, my ability to transfer that mortgage to the new home is a win-win for me as the homeowner. It's a win-win for the the real estate agent who sells the home. And if there's an agent on the selling side and the buyer side, both of them are happy. Of course, title companies are happy, lawyers are happy, appraisers are happy because things are moving. But the only piece is the mortgage professional. Because once again, if I have the ability to transfer that mortgage over to another home, how does that benefit the mortgage professional? Now, like I said, Housing Secretary Pope said that it is supposed to help housing affordability, the housing affordability crisis, because currently where we are in the country, I know the Northeast is still holding steady. Um, the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut area is still holding steady. Houses are still selling, even though prices are still going up, but houses are still selling. And to be honest with you, it's almost like a housing shortage because there are more people who want to buy and there's not enough homes being sold. And so that is where the crisis in the affordability comes in, because those individuals who have the low interest rates, who's going to go to another home and pay a higher interest rate? So I'll be honest with you, the portable mortgage thing, it is interesting. Um, I would like to see how it's going to pan out, because it may have its place. It is something that can possibly work because, like I said, real estate agents would like it. Um, all the other parties involved, the only ones that I don't really quite see would be the mortgage professionals, because if, using myself for example, 3% mortgage, have a home, paying a current mortgage company. Now, how does that transfer in terms of, do that same mortgage company keep that same mortgage? Um, like I said, and I'm one to even say, even being in the financing space, still not quite sure how that will work. I mean, I would assume that that same company would get the advantage of taking on the new home. Now, of course, that whole equity piece, I would like to see how that would work, because although you're transferring the mortgage, now how would that homeowner get their equity? Because in order to get your equity, let's just give an example. Myself, I've owned a home since the 90s. It is now 2025. A lot of appreciation has built up. There's a lot of equity still there. Now, of course, when I sell that home, I get to be able to get access to that equity, whether I'm holding on to it or transferring a portion to the new home. At the end of the day, it is my equity. But now, if I get to transfer that mortgage, what happens then? Now, I know with me being in the space of note buying and being the lien holder that has purchased mortgage paper, I'm somewhat seeing how it can possibly work, but still, it's really gray. Um, because I'm just not sure how the lien is on, because let me just explain like this, because I tend to talk as if the person who is listening know. So when you buy a home, and if you get a home with a mortgage, the mortgage company, the financing company, the LLC, or what have you, is considered a lien holder for the mortgage note. So the deed, depending on different states, I know that whole deed thing is different, but I'm just going to use New Jersey, for example. When you buy a home, the deed is going to be in your name, but the mortgage paper and everything is going to be a lien against your home, because you don't truly own it, because you have to pay the financing company. And so they have a lien on your home. And so now going back to the portable mortgage, if the portable mortgage is going to this new home, there has to be some type of release. So how do um, that's what I'm just wondering, just releasing that other home to the new home. And even if that's the case, or we're going to do a transfer or release or what have you, what about that equity? Because the piece, in order for a homeowner, whether it's myself or anyone, to get the equity, is that this is a home you've owned, even though there was a mortgage on it, there has been some appreciation. A person buys it. Let's just use easy numbers. I buy a house in the 90s for 100,000. It is now 2025. House is worth 500,000. I have $400,000 worth of equity. Okay, with that 100,000, I still have a mortgage, which is a lien against that home for, let's just say, 40,000. So even though I have 40,000 in 400,000 in equity, I still have to satisfy the balance of the 40,000 that I owe the mortgage company. So now I'm walking away with 360. For those who understand how real estate work, I understand you got to pay title company, this, all this, transfer tax, and all, but I'm just using easy numbers. The 360 is still mine. That is still my equity. But because once again, as long as that lien holder and any other liens against the home is satisfied, everything is paid off. And now the equity goes to me. Title company or attorney writes me a check because it is now my equity. That's the buildup of wealth. That is why I have stressed this enough. I did a video on the 30 versus 50-year mortgage, and I'm always going to say you are always in a winning position being a homeowner. Because that example that I just showed you, there is not a tenant anywhere. There is not a person who pays rent who can literally walk away with over $300,000 of equity. And let me just say, ladies and gentlemen, what I'm saying is not impossible. There are parts of this country here in the Northeast where you literally could have bought something in the 90s for 100,000 and now 2025 you want to sell it and you have built up $400,000 worth of equity. And like I said, you may have a lien holder that you have to pay off, which is the mortgage company, but all that other stuff, considering all other liens are paid, if there's any, you get to walk away with over $300,000 worth of equity. That, my friend, is how wealth is built in this country. And people who look like me are not really privy to that conversation. In other economic groups, and this conversation is very common. And so going back to the topic, the portable mortgage, that's why I'm saying it can be quite gray. Now, with that equity piece that I've talked about, that brings me to something that I recently posted on one of the social media sites. I talked about the gift of equity. The gift of equity is the ability, and this is piggybacking on all the previous conversations that I've had, the 30 versus 50 year mortgage. And I gave my stands on that in that podcast episode. I talked about the benefits of home ownership and what a lot of people don't understand with that conversation is as bad as you want to say the 50-year mortgage is a bad um situation. If you notice in that podcast episode, I said you have options. You don't want a 50-year mortgage, then don't get it. There are other options, but at the end of the day, it allows an individual to get in the game because groups of people who don't look like myself, they understand the power of equity, which is why when I said that on one of the social media platforms, I talked about the gift of equity. The gift of equity is a wealth building strategy that allows you to take the buildup of equity in your home and be able to pass down that equity to family members to be able to buy a home. Now, I'm giving you the abbreviated version to be able to still own that home, get ownership of that home, and they don't have to come out of pocket. See, my friends, that is how wealth is passed down. And you can't do that being no tenant. You cannot do that being in a rental. I am not anti-rental, but I am here to say ownership matters. But a lot of times people do not know the intricacies of how wealth is built. So, my caution to you, be very careful of conversations of people who say buying a home is a waste of time. For some people, that conversation may make sense, but I do know that in some economic groups, it does not make sense because it is one of the most well-known wealth building tools that have been created here in America. And like I said, I'm just giving you the very what I would say the abbreviated version, just the very top um um what is it when you just I can't even think of it right now, but I'm just giving you a little sample of the gift of equity. But if you understand the power of that concept, right then alone, that whole thing of rent versus buying would not even cross your mind. So that is what I have to say about the whole portable mortgage. I tied it into the gift of equity to kind of piggyback on the last podcast episode that I did about the 30 versus 50-year mortgage. And these are some of the conversations that I'm going to continue to have because I do believe that who we have in office right now, there's going to be a lot of changes when it comes to buying real estate. I mean, already, I may not have talked about it here on the podcast, but a lot of changes have been going on. Um, Maybe I'll still talk about it. It's just so much stuff that goes on that a lot of times I don't really, I need to plan better on topics that I could talk about because there is a really big push of the whole cryptocurrency being part of, you know, the mortgage landscape and the ability to buy homes. So in the next 5 years, like I said, the world that we know it today is going to be different in 5 years in terms of buying a home, being able to build wealth, the accumulation of wealth. It is all going to be different. And the administration we have in now is going to literally push that initiative. And this has nothing to do with do you like the administration? Do you, or you don't? This podcast isn't about that. This is just about just being aware and being able to take advantage of some of these initiatives that are going on because a lot of people, especially people who look like me, are not aware of these conversations. So once again, this is another episode of the Never Lose a Deal podcast. As always, if you have a real estate scenario and that you would like to talk about how creative financing can help you expand or scale your real estate portfolio, as always, go to if you're watching on YouTube, there'll be a link below this video. But if you're listening on one of the other podcasting platforms, you can always go to www.neverloseadealpodcast.com to learn more. And I will see you in the next episode. Have a good day. Bye bye.